It's me, Brad, just making a quick little video to show you how to use your gun, and then down below in the info section I'll put some products you might want to consider buying for this gun. This is the Walther CCP, and the reason I got you this gun is two reasons. First of all, the slide is very easy to pull back. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be easy for you, but it is easy for me, much easier than any regular gun. And I'm going to show you some exercises you can do here in a little bit that'll strengthen your ability to do that. But first, the slide is easier to pull back, and then the recoil is supposed to be much less than a regular gun. So hopefully that'll work out. So that's the reason we got this. And the Walther is a very, very high quality gun. They're made in Germany, and it's just a really good brand. So let's get on with how this gun works. Okay, let's go over the safeties. First of all, I'm going to show you up here where the safety is. Now the old saying is red, you're dead. So remember that. Now the key is when you can see red, you're dead. So with it down, flush, you can see red. So it's ready to fire. If you pull it up, and of course it looks kind of odd too to have something up here on the slide. So if that's sticking up, then that means the gun is on safety and will not fire. So if I pull the trigger, nothing happens. Whereas if I put it down, now it fires. So that's the way the safety works. Manual safety. Now, everybody does it differently. I'm going to show you how I do it. I never mess with a safety. Mine's always red, you're dead. It's always on fire, ready to go. The magazine, however, I should say, there's not one in the chamber. The magazine will be loaded. My spare magazine will be loaded. So I've got two magazines. One's always in the gun. So the only thing that I need to do to make this gun ready to fire right now is one thing, and that is to pull back the slide. And see, now it stays open because there's no gun. I mean, there's no bullet in there. But if it was chambering around, you would just pull it back, and it would slide forward on its own. And now it would be ready to fire. So again, there's only one movement you have to do. If you have your gun stored, in a drawer or whatever, in this fashion, safety's off, the magazine's loaded, and now you simply pull out the gun, and that's going to, of course, slide forward, and you're ready to go. So it's just one slide movement and you're ready. Now, there's another way. If the slide is too difficult for you to pull back, what you could do is you could actually go ahead and load the gun, go ahead and chamber around, or somebody chambered around. So now you're ready to go, and now put it up on safe. So now the gun's ready to fire as soon as you flick down his safety. So now, in this scenario, the gun's inside the drawer or wherever you've got it stored, safe. You pull it out, all you do is flip down the safety, and now you pull the trigger and it's ready to go. So that may be an option if the slide is too tricky, or if you just want to choose that option. But if you do, be very careful, because keep in mind you have a round chambered, and when you have one in the chamber, that makes things a lot more dangerous. So it's much better if you can rack the slide. Okay, now let's talk about some other safeties. You've also got a trigger safety. So if you accidentally drop your gun and it hits into something or jars something, it's got a safety feature that will not let this trigger fire. That's a built-in safety. You've got another built-in safety, and that is, you'll see on the side of the gun, and I'll show you this whenever you're shooting the gun. This shows when there's a bullet in the chamber. So if I had a magazine right now and I racked it, had one in the chamber, this would look different. Well, I'll show you that when we get actually on the range. It's called a chamber indicator. So that's a lot of cool little features. Now, something else nice about this gun is you don't have to worry about putting your fingers on this gun. A lot of guns, if you put your fingers on them, now you have to immediately clean the gun. You have to wipe them off, because fingerprints, that greasiness, can cause rust on guns. But I chose a gun with a stainless steel slide for you. Stainless steel you can touch all you want, and same thing with the synthetic stock. Some people don't like plastic stocks, they call them, but almost all gun manufacturers have went to this synthetic polymer because it's actually stronger than wood. It won't chip or break, and it's going to look like this for basically forever unless you bang this thing around. So to clean this thing on the outside is not that important. Now, the negative of this gun is it is a little difficult to break down, to break apart and clean the insides. What I suggest is I can show you how to do that. Now, I've done it myself. It is not that difficult, but quite simply, just every time you see me, have me clean the gun, and I can break it down and clean it, and eventually you can learn how to do it too. So that's not a big deal, but this gun will need cleaned. That is one thing about this. This special gas-driven setup that makes this recoil less and makes the slide easy to pull back, it can have a problem if you have dirt and buildup in there that other guns wouldn't have. So that's the downfall of this gun. You will need to clean it sometimes, and I can show you how to do that. Okay, now let's talk about racking the slide, because this is going to be very important. To rack your, well, first of all, let's talk about something that's very important in gun management, and that is never put your finger on the trigger until you are totally ready to fire it. So in other words, anytime you pick up a gun, get in the habit of that pointer finger, that trigger finger that you're going to use. For me, I'm right-handed, so it's going to be the same with you. I assume you're right-handed. When you pick up that gun, let that trigger finger go right across the top, never down on the trigger, because if you get that finger on your trigger, you could be nervous or whatever in a situation, you may end up pulling the trigger. So even though this has a fairly heavy trigger pull, it's got a 5-pound trigger pull. I'm going to show you how difficult it is. I mean, it's not a hard pull, but you're not going to accidentally do it. But just for gun safety, always put your finger on the side. See how my finger is right there? That's exactly, my other, of course, are down below, and this finger is right here. Now, once I get that gun pulled up at somebody, yes, then I'm going to slowly put my finger on the trigger and get ready to squeeze. And whenever you squeeze the trigger, make sure, first of all, of course, you're going to bring the gun up and you bring your other hand down here, obviously not up here where your hand could interfere with the slide. And luckily, I got you a pistol that has a kind of a ducktail back to where that won't hit. But if you don't have that, you have to be careful, because if you have your hand like that, it can interfere with the slides. Okay, now let's cover racking the slide. So you pick the gun up, remember, finger never on the trigger, certainly not now. And what you do is this. Now there's several ways you can rack a slide. You can just reach down regular and try to pull back towards you. That's what most people try to do. So that with this gun I can do it easy, but it was still a little difficult for me there. So you can do that, but that's not what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is take the gun and then bring your other hand, put it on top of the slide like this, and then pull back like that. Because what you can do is you're using two hands. This hand, the right hand, is pushing forward, while the other hand on the slide is pulling back. So it's this. Your shoulders and both hands are doing that. So let's look at that again in fast motion. What you're going to do, you pull the gun out, right back. Let's do it a little bit slower motion. Hand comes on, you're going to push forward with this hand, pull back with this, so it's whap. So one thing you can do to strengthen that is to take a really strong cord, like a rubber band that's really strong, not a weak one, and take it and just go like this with that. Take that rubber band and then pull it, just like you would the slide. In fact, make sure you put your hands exactly like you were racking a slide. So one hand is pulling back and one hand's pushing forward. Wham! Like that. So if you practice that enough, this will become second nature, and I really suggest you take this gun and do practice that. Now, let's talk about getting the slide back in place, because you want to practice doing this stuff without any ammunition in here. And you don't want to constantly be letting your slide fly back like that. It's not a problem, but if you did it 500-600 times, it's just not a smart technique to use. So let me show you how you release the slide when you're just practicing the slide. And of course, remember, there's no rounds in here, so it'll hold back when you pull this back. And also, just to give you a heads up, when you shoot this gun, it'll hold 8 shells. And then if you racked one into the slide, you could add another one. So you could have 9, but realistically, you're going to have 8 shells to fire. Once you fire them, when that last round goes out, you'll know because the slide will stay back. And that's a good feature to have on a gun. It automatically holds back. Now, how to release it? Okay, on this side, I want to show you, is a little thing. And you'll learn that if you just push down, it'll release itself. But again, I want to show you the better way to do that for your gun. And that is to hold on, again, take the top of the slide, hold it. Now I'm going to pull back a little bit like I'm racking the slide, and I'm pushing down that button, and then I let it go forward myself. So it looks like there's no real difference there, but what you're doing is just taking a little bit, there it is, rack it. I'm just taking a little bit of that, I don't want it to bang forward. So you're just basically being kind to your gun. So I'm just teaching you, if you want to learn to get comfortable racking that slide, which is something you need to do, then do it, and use your other hand to be on top to kind of give a little bit of ease in going back in. That way you don't hit this button and pow, I don't mean a fire, I'm saying the slide goes forward really hard. Okay, now the sights that come on this, the sights on the top of the gun, they're not night sights. So I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this video that'll show you some night sights that you can just click on that link, and those are the ones I suggest you get. That may add an extra $100 to this gun, but if you pick this gun up in the middle of the night or when it's very dimly lit light and you try to hold this out, you're not going to be able to see these things here very well. So night sights are a must for a bedside gun. If you're going to be outside in the day, it's not going to be that big a difference. It won't help at all, really. But night sights are a must for night. And another accessory that I suggest you look into is a laser. And I bought you a gun that has a rail right here. So there are several lasers out there on the market, and I will put some links down below. What I suggest is you get, I'm hoping there'll be one where it's automatic. Right down here, there's a little switch that when this thing connects, that when you actually just grip the gun, not even your finger on the trigger, but when you grip it, it automatically turns the laser on. And that laser is going to point right at and show exactly where, if you pull the trigger, it's going to hit. From a reasonable distance, obviously. But a laser is nice. Now, where a laser can be bad is if you have a laser on there and it's switch activated and you're trying to switch around and turn that laser on. And yeah, if you have plenty of time, it's no problem. But if you've got a gun in a drawer really quick and you pull it up, you rack the slide, you want to be able to point that thing at whatever target you've got and see that laser right on them. And that way you could even shoot from down here or wherever. You wouldn't have to have it up in a perfect position. Okay, let's talk about range safety. First of all, range safety is very important, especially if you're going to be shooting together. First of all, you should never, ever both have a gun in your hand at the same time at the range if you're shooting it at one target area. The only way that would be okay is if you were at a professional range and you were in your own stalls and you were shooting separately. But at our house, you're together, so you should only have one person having a gun in their hand ready that they could fire at a time. And the other person obviously should always be behind them, and make sure you get ear protection. These Howard lights, and these have the benefit of being able to turn up the volume, and you can actually hear better than your regular hearing, but it's got a built-in system where as soon as a gunfire or anything above like 80 decibels, whatever the hearing protection level is, it kicks it out. So when you fire your gun, it kicks it out. The benefit of having this is, if you've ever been on the range, no one likes to keep their earmuffs on because they can't hear the other people around them as they're trying to talk. So they're always taking them on and off, and it's easy to get just one accidental firing and your ears are ringing for life. So remember that. be very careful. Always use hearing protection. And this also gives the benefit of, let's say you were shooting a gun and a little kid was running and going to be in your line of sight, and somebody way back hollered, "Hey, look out, you know, Adam's coming," or whatever. Then, or, you know, hold up or stop or wait, then you could still hear them because you would have your, you know, your hearing protection on, safe for the gunfire, but you'd be able to hear their important instructions. So definitely a must. I suggest you both get a set of these Howard lights, Impact Sports, and I'll put a link underneath the video for these. Mine have the little camouflage cover I got from Tactical Sewing Company. It is very, very comfortable. So, okay, lastly, I want to suggest a safe, just a small safe beside of your bed to keep this in, and the best one to have is the fingerprint or yeah, the fingerprint operated ones, the ones where you just put your hand right on top of it and boom, it opens up. They're expensive. You really need to consider forking over the money on that, because that could really not only save your life, but, you know, a small child or whatever that comes in there, even if it's in your drawer, you know, they could get to fishing around in there. The one downfall about this gun is, well, it's not a downfall, but it's a danger, and that's the slide. It's very easy to rack, so even a small child might be able to rack that slide. So just be careful. You know, if you keep this in a drawer, I don't think there's any problem with that. But if you really want the best quality safety possible, yet able to get to it, I would not recommend a safe where it's got a key or combination. You know, seconds are going to count. So my suggestion is, I've got a link down there to that safe. You probably should both get one for each side of your bed, and that's pretty much it. Okay, have fun. Hope you enjoy the gun.